And now I would like to introduce and welcome for the speaker of the second session, and he's Dr. Leonilo Capulso. He's CEO President of Beyond Books Publication Philippines. Dr. Leonilo is a multi-award-winning Filipino master teacher, speaker, and researcher from Pampanga, Philippines. He's a senior high school master teacher at St. Matthias National High School, School Division Office of Pampanga, Region 3 of the Department of Education in Philippines. With over 2 decades of teaching experience, Dr. Leonilo is a Daniel McBayon Award-winning educator. He is also the recipient of Asian Achiever Award 2019, Gawat Path National Award 2019, Outstanding Research Advocate of the Philippines Award 2019, and Most Outstanding Teacher Award 2018. He is a man of wisdom and knowledge. Now I would like to request Dr. Leonilo to take the session. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Um, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah, sure, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, let me just share first my slide. I hope this works. Okay, can you see my slides, ma'am?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Good morning from the Philippines. Thank you for inviting me to this International Faculty Development Program organized by Department of English, Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Cape Comorin Trust, Grand Academic Portal, Lavender Literary Club. And tonight, I'm going to share emerging trends in research, particularly on using technology in enhancing research productivity. And basically, I'll be discussing more on the perspective of the Philippine basic education. And let's try to see how we could benchmark these ideas in other Asian counterparts that we have. So for tonight, we're going to discuss the effect of technology and this COVID-19 pandemic in the education and research culture and productivity. We will also identify the range of computer-based technologies that can help researchers as use this in emerging trends in research. And lastly, to understand how to make use of some key technologies in producing and understanding research culture. So COVID-19 indeed has impact to the educational paradigm and the totality of educational framework. So from the traditional face-to-face delivery, now we are moving to online or distance or home-based learning. So this is one of the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. So technology is changing the dynamics of education, especially the relationship between the teachers and the students. So earlier, our good speaker was actually discussing about the importance of understanding stress and different ways of facing stress, particularly at home and in the workplace. I hope my discussion will not add stress to our listeners, to our participants. But we have to realize that as we face the new normal, we also have to understand the very important role of technology inside the classroom and in our experience in conducting research inside and outside the classroom. In the Philippines, one of a Catholic bishop in the name of Pablo David from the Diocese of Caloocan in the Philippines once said that before teachers would tell students not to use the cell phone inside the school. But because of COVID-19, if not everyone, many students find their school inside the phone. So this is one of the impact of COVID-19 and technology. So according to Andrew Kim, a researcher from Stelcare Educational Solution team, said that Educators and school administrators should reshape educational spaces in order to provide better learning experiences to students, to teachers, and even to other LGUs in order to support educational evolution. So before, technology is only used as a soap-up substitute for conventional tools like transparencies for overhead projectors, handouts, books, and pens. But because of the advent of technology brought about by COVID-19, technologies are now transforming how instruction actually happens. In the Philippines, for example, where the Department of Education introduced four modalities, um, the modality that is now being adopted in certain areas of the country are based on the condition, the health condition of the of the community. So face-to-face modality is basically not yet implemented in the Philippines because of cases of COVID-19. So technology now is playing a very important role, and it's now trying to transform how instruction is actually conducted. So still, according to Andrew Kim, as teachers, they will be using technology in order to replace models of standardized rote learning and create more personalized, self-directed experiences for students. Although in certain areas of the Philippines, there are school division offices. For example, in the case of school division office of Pampanga in, in the central Luzon, majority of the modalities being used are distance printed modules. But private schools and even some sections in public schools are also using technology as their means of modality. So therefore, teachers must be able to be familiar with different mechanism in enhancing students' engagement. This is the reason why, as of the moment, the school division offices in the Department of Education is giving now teachers, master teachers, and even head teachers this learning delivery modalities course on how to maximize engagement with students. The challenge to us now is, as learning is becoming virtual or distant, virtual activities is actually becoming more physical. So virtual and physical environment are meeting at the middle. So this is now the challenge to us, especially those who are using technology in providing instruction. So based on other studies or previous studies, um, continuous synchronous online mechanism could sometimes lead to saturation among students. That is why activities being provided should be relevant to the experience of the students. So in other school division office in the Philippines, and I know in other Asian countries, there are flexible and mixed modalities being adopted. For example, in Pampanga, aside from the printed modules being delivered to students, there are other modalities being adopted like TV-based instruction and radio-based instruction to compensate the modules being provided to the students. So this is now the flexibility of the division office, of the teachers, and the collaborative effort of the parents and the local government officials are playing into place. Now, how COVID-19 or the entrance of technology now make impact to research and education. And later on, we will be discussing what are the trends that can be adopted in order to maximize research productivity. At this time of, as of this time, as we're trying to face the reality of COVID-19, research is playing a vital role in trying to find out the best vaccine to stop the spread of COVID-19. Educational leaders and decision makers are also trying to enhance mechanism in order to provide relevant and quality education to students despite of the pandemic. and how technology would help enhance this kind of mechanism. So, research as defined by Clark and Clark is a careful, systematic, and objective investigation conducted to obtain valid facts and eventually draw conclusions and establish principles regarding identifiable problem in some field of knowledge. So, as of this time, for example, in the Philippines, there is an argument, there is a debate on prolonging the enhanced community quarantine of big cities in order to protect the citizens, while at the same time trying also to balance it with the economic situation of the city. So if people were not be allowed to go to work, or establishment are not allowed to open, then people will have the scarcity of resources in order to survive. Although the government had been giving assistance, but of course, it will only end or last up to the certain point in time. So as political leaders and even religious leaders, we must be able to make decisions as to how to balance the situation. So here, research is very important. So the decisions conducted or being implemented in the church, in the government, or actually based on the data gathered in the field. So, for example, that research in the basic education in the Philippines are based on the basic education research agenda. So this is articulated to provide guidance to schools, division offices, and other stakeholders in the conduct of educational research. For example, the Department of Education was able to develop the learning continuity plan. This is a blueprint of how educational system will be delivered for the whole school year. Started from the kind of modalities that will be adopted, security and health protocols, and the security of quality education to be delivered by students. So all these are being encompassed in the basic educational research agenda. Now, as educators, they should have the data in order to create the proper decisions that they will be able to use in order to respond to the needs. So basically, research or the utilization of research results to inform the department's planning, policy, program development aligned with its vision, mission, and core values. So even in the field of education, in the field of medicine, in the field of economics, the data being gathered in the field will be the base data to be used by decision makers in order to address a particular problem and eventually bring about solution. And this is the main reason of research. So, in the Philippines, we have the Department Order number 39 series of 2016. So this is the order from the Department of Education. And this DepEd identified 4 major areas where teachers and school leaders can make their research in order to respond to the needs of the school. So these areas includes teaching and learning, child protection, human resource and development, and governance. So all research conducted in the field are themed or are grouped according to these 4 important themes. With these 4 important themes from DepEd Order 39, there are also 3 cross-cutting themes being integrated, and these are gender and development, disaster risk reduction, management, and inclusive education. All these themes or topics in educational research tried to respond to the needs of the school, of the institution, in order to provide quality education, particularly in this time of pandemia. So these themes are anchored with the department's mission and particularly the 4 stakeholders. In the Philippines, the stakeholders pertains to those who are part of the decision making and the recipients of education. So the first theme, the teaching and learning process, responds to the student and teacher's needs. Later on, I'll be presenting to you what are the different topics that can be conducted in this area. The second theme is on uh, child protection policy, okay, and which concentrates on the students. Then the human resource and development, which addresses the concern of teaching and learning staff. And lastly, on governance, which focus on the administration and stakeholders engagement. So, because we don't have the luxury of time, so as teachers or as education leaders, what topic of research can be conducted on teaching and learning area as specific in the basic education research agenda? So this first theme is actually uh, categorized into another 5 sub-themes. So teaching and learning research can include research on instruction, curriculum, learners, assessment, and learning outcomes. For example, during this pandemic, what kind of instructional mechanism will be used by teachers in the rural and urban areas? What kind of curriculum will be used? No, in the Department of Education, for example, the Department of Education try to craft what we call the milk. These are the synthesized competencies from students that will be delivered because of the shortening of the school days. Assessment, for example, as teachers, as researcher, you might ask, how should students be assessed based on this kind of modality? So the kind of topics that can be used for this learning modality are the ones presented in your screen. So under this category, researchers could make study on student achievement, competencies, values, behavior, personality traits, self-efficacy, special education, so on and so forth. ICT application is also part of teaching and learning topics. The homeschool linkages, which is also very important now, as we see the important role played by parents, by guardians, and the local government officials. So, and another theme is on child protection, on prevalence, child protection, teenage pregnancy, bullying, drugs, child labor, and gambling. Under the third theme on human resource development, it has 3 sub-themes on teaching and non-teaching, qualifications and hiring, career development, and employee welfare. So, under the fourth theme, under governance, the following topics that can be used or can be applied are research on planning, on finance, program management, transparency and accountability, evaluation, customer satisfaction, and disaster reduction and management. So those are the topics per themes in the basic education research agenda. Now, how is research connected to online learning? What are the kinds of direction that a researcher could embrace, particularly those schools who are embracing online mechanism? So, for main researchers' goal to pursue in online learning could be the following. Number 1, a researcher could focus on how to enhance learner engagement. Prior to the suspension of or the extension of the opening of school year, there were already schools who started their dry run on how in using the modules, and they could see the engagement capability of students based on the feedbacks that we had gathered earlier. No, parents would actually report to us teachers that some students are having hard time doing their individualized instruction. So, as researchers, we could also look into this. Second, promoting effective facilitation. How can a teacher deliver his lesson in a more effective way that the students who are at home doing his other chores can still catch up and meet the competency expected of the student? Then develop assessment technique, because this is different from the face-to-face modality. uh, Teachers must be able to identify different teaching assessment technique to assess students' competency when it in relation to the topic being discussed. And of course, design faculty development. This is exactly the reason why we are all in front of our screen. Particularly this International Faculty Development Program in India, where all of us are watching now. So faculty members are actually being provided with this capacity building to become more effective facilitators of instruction. So what are the areas for future research? So as a researcher, you could establish best practices for online teaching strategies, because there were less research on asynchronous teaching strategy. For example, I want to know what are the best practices of other schools as to the online teaching strategy that actually yield quality results from students. So you can benchmark from this best teaching strategies on online learning. And we should also realize that there are less research conducted on asynchronous teaching strategies. So we can also explore on this topic. Second, to improve upon the identification of characteristics that are necessary for adolescents to be successful in online learning. As I mentioned earlier, students have the tendency to be saturated. No? Studies show that pure online learning are actually not sustainable. So teachers are supposed to be creative when it comes to engagement and even collaboration with parents. And of course, to provide remediation for students who are lacking these characteristics. For example, for students who have weak Wi-Fi connectivity, so as teachers must be able to have other alternative to address this kind of situations and problems of our students. This is where action research actually play a very important role. Third, how virtual school and brick and mortar school personnel can encourage more interaction between in-school and online classmates. We know that interaction is very important in learning process. Students can easily express their ideas, their concerns with classmates. But because of the difficulty and the limitation of online learning, teachers must provide other means of interaction, not necessarily face-to-face interaction, but other modalities using technology, as we will be discussing towards the latter part of this session. And fourth, researchers should also examine the quality of students' learning experiences in virtual environment. So we could start asking, as teachers, as researchers, what are the experiences of students, of parents, of other LGUs in the delivery of instruction in this kind of modality? And from there, we could actually come up with a better and an enhanced modality in order to provide quality education. Now, towards the last part. So now we see that the role of technology in research, particularly on emerging trends of research. Some of them may not actually be new to you, but these are just a review on how we can maximize technology in order to enhance our research productivity, particularly during the time of pandemic. So Dr. Christine Davis, a senior lecturer, actually presented different tools and strategies to be able to be used in order to enhance research productivity. So the first thing that you could actually capture the screen if you want. So because of the limitation of a face-to-face modality. Researchers should now adopt online tools for gathering data. And we have in the screen different survey tools with their website. For example, the Survey Monkey with its website there, okay, with its URL, Sogo Survey and Google Forms. Now, when I actually conducted my data gathering for my dissertation, which is on research productivity, I made use of Google Form because when I started gathering data, it was already the start of the pandemic. So I have a hard time gathering my data. So thank you for my mentors who allowed me to use this, particularly Dr. Dexter Balahadja of the University of the Assumption for guiding me through in my data gathering procedure. Now, another tool that we can use is using the estimator of sample size and related concepts. Maybe some of you are very familiar with Rawsoft.com. Sometimes it's a pity to hear some researchers that up to now using the Sloven's formula in identifying the research sample size. There were studies conducted by researchers from the University of the Philippines on when and how can researchers use the Sloven's formula. But the easiest way of identifying our sample size is by using Rawsoft.com with its URL presented on the screen. This is how it looks like, no? So if you go to Rawsoft.com, you will be presented with this screen. All you have to do as a researcher is just write to input the number of population that you have in your research, and this one are actually they are you could actually adjust this. For example, the margin of error, you want to make it 5%, and then the confidence level, you want to make it 95. These are all for, you could just edit this. But the moment you are able to identify all this, Rawsoft will give you the number of sample that you need in order to conduct your research. So in this case, for example, no, if you have 4,000 population and you want a 90% confidence level with 10% margin of error, a researcher only need 67 sample size. So this is the importance of Rawsoft.com. So another tool that we can use is planning and reviewing tools. So one example is mind maps. Okay, using mind maps, in this case, we are using MindMeister. So MindMeister is an online mind mapping application that allows users to visualize, share, and present their thoughts via cloud, via the internet. So if you try to look at the screen, no, so this is an example of a MindMeister. Although this is online, we can also have some offline software like FreeMind, no? So you can use that as an alternative to mindmeister.com. So another tool that we can use in doing research is using the flowchart tools like Glyphy. So you have here glyphy.com. All you have to do is go to the website and you will be presented with this screen. And you could start doing your flowchart activity. Another example of flowchart tool is diagramo.com. So these are the tools actually presented by the author mentioned earlier. Another one is doing social bookmarking. Doing social bookmarking allows the researcher collaboration or collation of useful web pages, use searchable tags, access to similar content used by others. So in this case, you have Digo in digo.com. But for some researchers like me who would still want pen and paper way of doing things, well, it's still up to you. But if you want to expedite things and you want to maximize technology, so these are only but few of the technologies that we can use in conducting research. The next one is referencing tools. So these are the tools that we can use in doing our research. So for example, the RefWorks, it is a web-based bibliography and database manager that allows you to create your own personal database by importing references from text files or online database and other various sources. Another example, which I'm actually using, this one was courtesy of Dr. Arnel Sikat of, again, University of the Assumption, who introduced us to using Mendeley. Mendeley is an online store of articles, options to locate similar sources, referencing plug into the Word, options to share, similar actually to Zotero. The good thing about Mendeley is you can actually store this in your desktop. And then all these journals that you want to use for referencing and in-text citation later on, as long as you are online, you can actually, even though you are online, as long as it is saved in your desktop, you can actually use it in doing your literature review and referencing. Social media. I'm actually nearing towards the last part. Because of COVID-19, social media actually became very, very useful to some. So like Twitter, Facebook, and blogs. For in the field of research, social media becomes now the opportunity for researchers to follow experts. Now we have different blogs or even articles coming from experts in different fields. Share your knowledge or even promote your research and receive feedbacks from peers. Although I'm very much grateful to ACRA, no, to Asian Qualitative Research Association from Silang, particularly to Dr. Rosario Arceli, for introducing us to nethnography. No? Nethnography is a new kind, or if not so new, is a kind of research where teachers or researchers would use social media in order to conduct research. It is a bit similar but not totally to ethnography. No, ethnography is a kind of research where the researchers try to study a particular culture of a particular group and understanding their way of life. Ethnography, on the other hand, is trying to find a particular community online in social media. Okay, and doing the same procedure. So according to Kuzinets, who is actually the author of ethnography, it is a specific set of related data collection, analysis, ethical and representational research practices where a significant amount of the data is collected through a very humanist, participant, observational research stance in social media. So, for example, I want to study a community of bloggers, of video bloggers, and how it helps them sustain their family income. Or now in the Philippines, for example, there is now the rise of BL series. And there are a lot of people who are actually fan of this kind of series. And they try to exchange their own opinions and reactions and feedbacks to the particular kind of movie, of series. Now, as a researcher, you can use this community in order to study this particular phenomenon. Or as teachers, for example, there are a lot of teachers community online. Some of them are very conservative, some of them are very progressive when it comes to teachers' welfare. So as researchers, we could make use of social media which is actually valid, although there are other some ethical considerations that should also be observed. So because I don't have the luxury of time, we might have another session for that, no, next time. So cousinets give us at least 5 basic steps in conducting ethnography through social media. First one is definition of research question. So just like the other research, we should start from what do you want to know? What do you want to understand? For example, in a particularly TV station in the Philippines, they have a segment of people who used to be working abroad, working as a in cruise ship, and then they started to gradually live their life differently. And you could use this kind of group to understand their coping mechanism. So you start with the question, what do you want to know? What do you want to understand? So then you try to determine the social media site that you will use. Would it be Facebook? Would it be Twitter? Would it be whatever other social media that you will be using? And then topic to investigate. Is it about business? Is it about livelihood? Is it about education? Is it about survival? Is it about rape? Is it about early pregnancy? Second step is community identification and selection. Where do our customers or business hang out online? Why business? Because this study actually originated from business research. But apply that to education, you have to identify what kind of community you want to study about. And then you don't stop there. You actually go deeper. Where are this phenomenon coming from? So just like ethnography, you are going deeper and integrate yourself into the culture of the community. Third, community participant observation. This is the time where engagement and immersion comes in. No, and data collection. How do we gather data? So our data can be secondary data. For example, the exchange of conversation in the website or in the social media. But you don't stop there. You also do literature review, and you could even communicate with the people to have a first-hand information. Okay? So that those things that you want to clarify, you could easily ask people. Fourth, data analysis and iterative interpretation of findings. So since this is more of a qualitative research, we will be using data analysis or thematic analysis, which is iterative in nature. Iterative means we keep on repeating until we were able to identify categories and themes that would eventually explain the phenomenon that we are studying. And of course, lastly, we need to write, present, and report the research findings. So before, many experts try to downgrade using Facebook and social media in research. But a new trend is coming in. Now, it's becoming popular, this ethnography. And there are different kinds of research using mass media and using technology. So I hope you could explore more in using this kind of research study. So in conclusion, using technology is there to increase efficiency in research and education in areas with the capacity to do so, while trying to empower our learners and communities to create positive learning environment in which the student can grow. Remember that as educators, as teachers in the basic education or higher institution, our main objective is to provide quality education to our students. And we use research, may it be applied, action research, or basic research, in order to have an informed decision. As education leaders, our decision should be a byproduct of research so that we will be guided to create positive learning environment in which our student can become responsible citizens of the country, responsible citizens of the world. So, to end, let me quote a saying from Saint Francis of Assisi, a Catholic saint, who once said, "Start by doing what is necessary." So, for now that we have a lot of things, we have a lot of things to to accomplish, to do, we start with what is necessary, what is important. So we should know our priorities and then do what is possible. So with these things, we can only do as much as we could. No, there are things which are beyond the circle of influence. So you only focus on what is possible because we cannot do everything. We're not Superman. And by doing this, so after we know what is necessary, after we prioritize what is possible, suddenly we are doing what is impossible. So with that, thank you very much. And once again, thank you for inviting me here. My WhatsApp number is posted on the screen. That's 0933-556-4886 to those who cannot see my screen. My email address is Leonilo Capulso 102017 at gmail.com. If you have some clarification, you could just give me some messages. If you can see at the right corner of my slide, that is the logo of my publication, Beyond Book Publication from Pampanga, Philippines. I'm actually from San Gabriel, Macabebe, Pampanga. I help teachers and researchers publish their books to inspire others, to inspire students, learners, and parents, and those readers that might be able to be enlightened by reading their manuscript. So please feel free to contact me in case you have some clarification. So once again, thank you for inviting me, the Department of English from Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Cape Comorin Trust, Grand Academic Portal, Lavender Literary Club for this International Faculty Development Program. Again, everybody, good evening from Pampanga, Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And it was a really very informative session. I can see many good compliments in the chat box for you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So thank you so much for joining us and for conducting such a wonderful and informative session. Now, participants, if any one of you wants to ask any question or if you have any query, you can ask, because in the chat box, I could not find any question or the query. But yes, I can see many good compliments for sir in the chat box. So yes, if anyone is having any query.
Yeah. Dr. Swati, I have a question for Leonil.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chauhan, and very thank you to Leonil. I think that is how your name is pronounced.
Yeah, Leonilo.
Okay, Leonilo, thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation and a very insightful. As you can see, lots of people are complimenting also. So I can save the time of compliments and I can ask you a direct question.
Okay, sir.
My question comes to when you talked about nethnography, right?
Yes, sir.
There you said that we can use social media as the source of data collection.
Yes.
Right. However, what is the authenticity of the responses that we get from there? Because let us say an example, may I quote an example also? Euthanasia. Euthanasia is a very controversial topic in the developing countries. Euthanasia means mercy killing. If someone is paralyzed for a long time, so deliberately doctor removes the life support gradually. So let us say I want to do research on euthanasia. Then how would I get my targeted samples? Because of COVID, because of the problems we have, emotional problems in today's world, because of the technology and people are very much isolated and depressed, I end up getting the wrong samples. I may get the wrong data to put forward. So what is my point is, what is the authenticity of ethnography, nethnography? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your points of clarification. That's very valid question. And ethnography, for some who are not so familiar, I personally am very new to this, but I appreciate it very much because of it's very timely. So how do we secure valid data and valid respondents. According to the structure, our participants should be basically part of a particular group online. For example, there is this group of parents who have experienced euthanasia, and they are exchanging comments and suggestions and everything. So the data that I'll be getting will only be based on the comments in the chat box. Okay, so this is one. This is secondary data. But you don't stop there. The next thing you're going to do is you try to, because you have to also emerge with them. So you could actually be part of the group, just like the ordinary ethnography. So we should be part of the community, we should be part of the group, and then we contact them directly. And you could say, for example, I saw in your comment that this is your point about euthanasia. What do you mean by that? So that in that case, you could actually trying to go deeper into the phenomenon. So as much as we try to start from the discussion box, we don't stop there. We go deeper. We try to connect with people in the group. So it's very essential that we are actually penetrating a particular group in the social media, so that we have already the base participants, sir.
Yes, you are absolutely right, Leonilo, that yeah, now I got your point. It got clarified that only on the basis of data we don't have to conclude. We have to further interact with those people who have responded to our questionnaire while our online research was going on. Thank you so much for giving me the clarification and taking the pains to give the clarification. And thank you, Dr. Swati, for giving me time to ask the question. I usually
thank you so much.
have lots of
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
So I would like to thank Dr. Leonilo